I'm going to visit every Harry Potter filming location, from the obscure to some of the most impressive landmarks across the UK. And you're coming with me.
Starting right here at Hogwarts itself, Alnwick Castle.
For the first two films, Alnwick Castle was used for most Hogwarts exterior scenes, most famously, flying lessons, which still take place today in the very same location, the Outer Bailey. Though, I'm not sure what Madam Hooch would think of this style.
Come back down this instant!
In the Chamber of Secrets, the Inner Bailey on the other side of the castle became home to the Whomping Willow, from which the Weasleys' poor Ford Anglia fled straight through the main gate, the Lion's Arch. Although Alnwick Castle is remarkable, perfect for Potter fans and history buffs alike, it's time to journey to a far more ordinary home,
where Harry Potter's story began.
This quiet suburban street just outside London became Privet Drive for Harry Potter's first instalment, before a set for the iconic number 4 was built at Leavesden Studios, which can still be seen by inquisitive muggles today. But as we know, Harry didn't stay there for long. After his surprise visit from Hagrid,
"You're a wizard, Harry."
the duo journeyed to a spot hidden under the skyscrapers of London.
Travelling through this impressive place, Leadenhall Market, which dates back to the 14th century.
One of the oldest markets in London, its architecture and history making it the perfect place to be hiding Diagon Alley. We see Harry and Hagrid leaving the market, where they then travel just around the corner
to the Leaky Cauldron, although it looks a little bit different today. And it's currently undergoing a new paint job. When they made it to Diagon Alley, they wouldn't be able to do much without a quick visit to Gringotts Wizarding Bank, whose magnificent interior was provided by this place, Australia House.
A remarkable Grade 2 listed building containing Australia's oldest diplomatic mission and built from an array of materials imported from home.
But it's nearly 11 o'clock somewhere, and the Hogwarts Express is getting ready to leave. So we've come here to St. Pancras Station? Yeah, that's right. St. Pancras Station was used for exterior shots of King's Cross Station, which is just over there.
Only seen briefly in Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, and in the epilogue. The Gothic architecture displayed by St. Pancras was far more impressive than the 60s brickwork of King's Cross, where our story continues.
Hagrid and Harry walked over the old bridge that used to stand here, leaving Harry to go find platforms 9 3/4. But since there's no divide between platforms 9 and 10, the divide between platform 4 and 5 was used. This pillar here was covered with a fake wall to widen it and protect it from all the trolleys that came smashing into it, which is probably part of the reason they installed this, so people can get their photos taken.
King's Cross featured in Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, the Chamber of Secrets, the Prisoner of Azkaban, and the Order of the Phoenix. It was due to feature in the epilogue of The Deathly Hallows Part 2, but the scene was reshot in the studio. The waiting room where Sirius and Harry talk was actually where platform 0 is now, on the opposite side of the station to where the back of the Harry Potter shop at platform 9 3/4 sits now. But it's time to catch the train.
I've got my luggage here, and I'll see you on the other side.
Platform 9 3/4 itself was just a reset platform 4, with the beautiful Hall-class Hogwarts Express waiting on the other side. Wait a sec. Did anyone else catch those cameras? Must be a story behind those. Anyway, We can see King's Cross slip away in this lovely shot as we head off to our next location.
The train we're jumping on, the train that goes to the kingdom. We're having fun, we're having fun. The train that never station.
I'm sure all the students enjoyed their trip through the Yorkshire countryside on the Hogwarts Express.
Which took them all the way to Hogsmeade Station, brilliantly portrayed by Goathland Station.
This beautiful little station on the North Yorkshire Moors Railway is remarkably untouched by time, the perfect spot for a wizarding railway, and exactly what I picture when imagining Hogsmeade Station. Surprisingly, Goathland only featured in the Philosopher's Stone, though I'm sure its influence carried on into later films and games. Arriving at Hogwarts, it's time to explore the great wealth of real-life locations used to depict the interior of the magical wizarding school.
Christ Church, Oxford, provided the stairway where Harry first meets McGonagall, Draco Malfoy, and many others.
A Christ Church hallway was also used for the scene where Hermione reveals that Harry's father, James, was also a Gryffindor seeker, and
its dining hall is also said to have inspired the Great Hall itself.
Christ Church is a constituent college of the University of Oxford. It was founded by King Henry VIII, and isn't the only time the University of Oxford features in Harry Potter. But we'll come back to that.
Another remarkable location used for Hogwarts was Gloucester Cathedral.
First seen housing the Fat Lady at the entrance to the Gryffindor Tower, the stunning and intricately designed hallways of the cloister were used for multiple scenes in the first two films. Then again for the Half-Blood Prince, linking Harry's last year at Hogwarts to the start of his journey. Even now, students still loiter in the hallways. Have they even read Educational Decree number 24?
I will have order.
Another remarkable location lending its walls to Hogwarts was Durham Cathedral.
Durham Cathedral featured extensively in the first two films. The walkways in the cloister were used for interior shots, often depicting characters either leaving or going to Professor McGonagall's Transfiguration classroom, filmed in Durham Cathedral's chapter house. The cloister garth was used for multiple scenes, often combined with the walkways. It was covered in fake snow for this wintry shot, and was the original location of this iconic line.
A gift from Draco's father.
The cathedral sits atop a hill along with Durham Castle in the centre of the city. On our way up to its lofty heights, we came across an interesting street full of characterful old buildings, as if Diagon Alley met Little Italy. Moving on to a hub of filming and the next place to appear on screen.
Lacock Abbey provided multiple interior locations for the first two films. Let's head in.
Our first stop at Lacock Abbey was the cloister, where we saw a very familiar sight. Just imagine it's night time.
Oh, professors.
Walking down the corridor, we came across this rustic old room. Potions, perhaps? No, this was Professor Quirrell's Defense Against the Dark Arts room. However, rather confusingly, on the other side of the corridor, we came across this similar room. And this one was Snape's potions class. Lastly, Lacock Abbey's majestic chapter house served as the perfect location for something as important and mysterious as the Mirror of Erised. And that one mostly deleted scene with students studying. But forget about that. It's the mirror we're here for. back down into London for our next classroom.
Professor Flitwick's Charms class was filmed here at Harrow School, in the fourth form room.
The large window behind Professor Flitwick is this very window. Unfortunately, we weren't able to go in, as much as we wanted to, if only to get out of the rain. Harrow School is a boarding school for boys, founded in 1572, with such distinguished alumni as Winston Churchill. The fourth form room that became the Charms classroom is the oldest part of the school and opened in 1615, making it a perfect fit for Hogwarts. The carvings seen all over the wood panelling are the names of every boy to attend the school between the 1660s and 1847. Heading back to our favourite university.
Oxford's Bodleian Library was used for multiple interior shots. Duke Humphrey's library above was used as the Hogwarts Library, but sadly that was restricted today. And below, the Divinity School was used as both the hospital wing and for dance classes.
Named for Humphrey of Lancaster, 1st Duke of Gloucester, a younger son of Henry IV, who donated 281 books to the library upon his death in 1447. This part of the Bodleian Library featured in both of the first two films. As Hogwarts' library, Duke Humphrey's library was where Hermione did much of her research, and was of course home to the restricted section, where Filch gave chase to Harry.
Who is it?
The Divinity School below was built between 1427 and 1483, and is one of the oldest buildings at the University of Oxford. The Divinity School became the Hogwarts Hospital wing for the first two films, and reappeared in the Goblet of Fire, this time for dance practice with Professor McGonagall. Now we head to a Hogwarts location right in the centre of London.
This beautiful building that you see behind me is St. Pauls Cathedral, and it lent its magnificent clock tower staircase to become a staircase for one of the towers of Hogwarts, leading students up to the divination class with Professor Trelawney.
I'm so sorry, dear boy. Did you say something?
A church has stood in this spot since 604 AD, though the current building was completed in 1710, after its predecessor was largely destroyed in the Great Fire of London. The stairs featured in both The Prisoner of Azkaban and The Goblet of Fire, and in fact, as you can see, it's the exact same shot. They thought we wouldn't notice. They also used a similar set for the Deathly Hallows Part 2, though no cheeky footage was reused. Once more into the centre of Oxford, this time the cloister at New College,
where poor Draco Malfoy was turned into a ferret.
New College is another constituent college at the University of Oxford, and despite its name, it's one of the oldest. And yes, this was the spot where the hilarious altercation between Malfoy and Mad-Eye Moody took place. Maybe chosen because of its relative closeness to the studio and other filming locations, the cloisters here are a perfect fit for Hogwarts. Only appearing for the one scene in the Goblet of Fire, you can easily imagine Draco sat up in this tree, and the Slytherins loitering at the base. Knowing the magic of the interior to Hogwarts, it's time to visit some of the locations about the grounds. Starting with Black Park, Buckinghamshire, just outside of London and not far from the studio, hence why it is featured in so many films.
Black Park was used for all kinds of shots depicting the Forbidden Forest, and includes the original home of Hagrid's hut.
Hagrid's humble homestead was constructed in a clearing right here for the first two films, before being remade in a far more remote spot we'll explore later.
This spot right here was the first location to depict the Forbidden Forest,
where Harry, Hermione, Ron and Draco all had their first detention. This area of the park was also used in the Chamber of Secrets, when the Ford Anglia fled the Forbidden Forest. Black Park also makes an appearance as the Forbidden Forest in The Prisoner of Azkaban, when Hagrid introduces his students to Buckbeak, and in the Goblet of Fire, when he reveals the dragons to Harry. Hagrid and Harry certainly spend a lot of time here, but the most impressive use of the park is yet to come.
would you believe that this spot right here was used for Hogsmeade Station? They built the entire thing right here.
An entire station was constructed for the Order of the Phoenix, including a quarter-mile of track, the platform, a building, 6 carriages, and of course, the steam engine itself. They must have really not wanted to come back to Yorkshire.
Virginia Waters, just outside London, was used for many bankside shots of the Great Lake. Much easier to get here than all the way up to Scotland.
But we'll get to that. Notice this very same tree Harry and I are leaning beside, and these 3 trees along the bank appearing behind that owl.
I'm not an owl!
Virginia Water Lake, Surrey, is a man-made lake that appears in The Prisoner of Azkaban, The Goblet of Fire, and almost The Order of the Phoenix, though the scene was never released. Let's move on
To our next location, Burnham Beeches.
just outside Egypt. No, not that one. Burnham Beeches is a biological site of special scientific interest, not far from the studio in Buckinghamshire. It is the location Luna introduces Harry to the Thestrals in the Forbidden Forest, and also a camping spot in the Deathly Hallows Part 1, where Ron destroys the lock-in. A lovely, quiet spot, except for the planes.
How did they manage? The amount of planes that have flown over here, how on earth did they manage to film in here?
For our final Hogwarts exterior location in this segment, we have a special guest to introduce it.
This is the tree where I was bullied oh so many years ago, on the grounds of Blenheim Palace. Oh, I don't know why I was made to do this one. Ugh.
This rather magnificent cedar of Lebanon was a favoured spot of mine, before Potter and his friends ruined the place for me. Across from this tree sits Blenheim Palace, the birthplace of the famed Muggle Prime Minister, one Winston Churchill, though its English Baroque architecture wouldn't look out of place with a wizarding family living within. I found this spot to be far more tranquil than last I was here. However, I was attacked most heinously by a group of ducks who wished me to break Gamp's law and conjure up some bread. Ridiculous. The Muggles here proudly boast of Mr. Potter's breach into my mind during his 5th year, and the actions of his father in this spot. However, their sign is incorrect. This is not the only special tree. Now it's time to explore the homes of the wizarding world. From the mundane Muggle streets of Little Whinging to the marvellous magical abodes. Although we have already visited the real-life Privet Drive, there are a few more Little Whinging and Surrey locations of Harry Potter's youth to visit, starting with a Dursley day out.
The old reptile house in London Zoo, behind me here, is where we first discover Harry's magic.
The reptile house has recently closed, and its inhabitants moved to another part of the zoo. Though we did catch a glimpse of the building through the trees. No sign of any escaped snakes, luckily.
Oh, hey, you caught me. Just waiting for the night bus so I can get to the next location. Flue powder isn't cheap.
This is the exact spot where Harry accidentally hails the night bus, just a stone's throw away from Leavesden's studio, now home to the Making of Harry Potter tour. How convenient. The playground behind Harry was built on this now overgrown park, to add to the tension of the scene, along with the blinking streetlight. We are also just across the road from the other park, in the Order of the Phoenix, also filmed outside the studio, though it is sadly now a car park. But we've got places to be.
We see the night bus travelling through the centre of London, careening over Lambeth Bridge.
Passing these two London buses, both going the same way.
So fast. All to get to the all-new entrance to the Leaky Cauldron, hidden under this bridge, although it's since taken on a new identity.
Let's head to another possible Little Whinging location.
When Dumbledore finds Harry at the beginning of The Half-Blood Prince, he is here at Surbiton Station.
Though Dumbledore refers to the place as going back to Little Whinging, the station is clearly marked Surbiton in the film, though Surbiton is just outside the borders of Surrey, home to the fictional Little Whinging. The cafe Harry is reading the Daily Prophet in is now a Cafe Nero, and there is one on either side of the station. Trains pass by extremely often in this station, usually straight through the middle, without stopping. But of course, Harry didn't always live with the Dursleys.
This lovely little house behind me was used as the Potter's home in many ill-fated flashbacks.
Used for early shots in the series, prior to the creation of the Godric's Hollow set for the Deathly Hallows, the quintessentially British village of Lacock appears once again.
This fountain, just a stone's throw away from Leavesden's studio,
became the background to one of the few photos Harry has of Lily and James. At the rear of a very nice hotel we actually stayed at, walking distance from the studio, this must have been a remarkably convenient filming location. This moment also appeared in Snape's memories in the Deathly Hallows Part 2. Was he there? It's time to take our enchanted Ford Anglia and head over to the Weasleys.
This unassuming patch of land right behind the Warner Brothers studio was once home to the Burrow. The Weasleys must have some pretty good anti-Muggle charms.
A set was built here for exterior shots of the Burrow in the Chamber of Secrets, with interior shots filmed in the studio. Though no evidence of a wizarding family remains, the site has now become an ecological park. This version of the Burrow made a brief reappearance in the Goblet of Fire, though most likely archive footage in CGI, when the Weasleys and their friends begin their trip to the Quidditch World Cup.
This is the spot where we first meet the Diggories in Frithsden Beeches, right by this wizened old oak.
Or at least one like it. This place is big.
Keep up!
All to get here, Ivinghoe Beacon.
A prominent hill and landmark in Buckinghamshire. Ivanhoe Beacon was once an ancient signal point and boasts some wonderful views. The group made their way up to the top of the hill.
So they could take one of these. It may look like just an ordinary boot, but this is a portkey to the World Cup. Cue fancy effects. The portkey took them here to the Quidditch World Cup. Look at those gorgeous cliffs behind me. Maybe not the best weather to be dodging bludgers.
The cliffs we should be able to see are the Seven Sisters on the coast of the English Channel, seen in the background when the crew arrive at the World Cup, though it was clearly a better day than today. The cliffs also feature in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, which we found out the very next day when watching the film.
Another location for the borough, this one a little more interesting, Abbotsbury Swannery.
Travelling a little further than the studio backyard, down to the south coast, aerial shots of the land surrounding the borough were filmed here for the Half-Blood Prince, to add to shots filmed in-house. Abbotsbury Swannery is a colony of nesting mute swans, who of course we left well alone, other than this one that came over to check on us, and is the only managed swannery in the world, accommodating over 600 swans. But the sun is setting, and we've got places to be. So it's time to get on our brooms and head back into London.
Flying over the Thames, we see Harry and members of the Order of the Phoenix flying past Westminster Bridge and the Palace.
This fantastic sequence sees our heroes joyriding past Britain's most iconic building. But what's it called? This is the Palace of Westminster, and its famous tower is called? Wrong. The Elizabeth Tower. This is Big Ben. But the tower is often just called Big Ben anyway, so I'll let you off. Interestingly, this sequence managed to avoid showing the London Eye, just across the river, that was not yet built at this time in the book.
Although they built a set to depict Grimmauld Place, the Black family ancestral home, because they didn't want to wake the poor London residents when filming late at night, it was said to be based off these buildings right here at Clermont Square. You can just imagine one of these being the secret home of the Black family, hidden by the Fidelius charm.
The set resembles the street so well, from the likeness of the buildings to the fenced-off park across the street. It has led many people to believe filming did take place here, though this is disproven by the lack of pavement on the far side of the street, the building placement on the adjoining street, the difference in window frames, and, well, the behind the scenes. But it wasn't long till Harry had to set off for his hearing, leaving Grimmauld Place behind.
Then entering and exiting this very station. They must have got lost.
We see Harry and Arthur Weasley heading down into Westminster Station, then exiting through the barrier at the very same station.
On their way to the Ministry of Magic, and believe it or not, this was the set for the visitor entrance, with an extra bridge built to cover this door, and of course a London telephone box added for the entrance itself. But no horses.
On a Westminster street, Great Scotland Yard, not far from the police headquarters and the Muggle Parliament, and dripping with phone boxes, this was a fitting spot to be hiding the entrance to the Ministry of Magic.
And only a few metres away is the spot where the trio, Harry, Ron and Hermione, staged their daring heist into the Ministry of Magic.
Quite literally just around the corner, we see Harry and Ron conducting their ambush, before heading into the men's in the middle of the road. If you're ever needing to go, I'm afraid there's no toilets there, just a statue, next to the Ministry of Defence. Not worth it. Now, our next home on the list.
Hermione Granger's house was filmed up here in this leafy suburb of North London.
Only seen in the Deathly Hallows Part 1, This is the place where Hermione uses a memory charm on her parents before walking away down the street. The church framed rather menacingly in the distance of the shot is St. Jude's, much less scary in person. Travelling with Dumbledore to our next location, and back to somewhere familiar.
This lovely little village of Lacock became both Budleigh Babbitton and Godric's Hollow, featuring in many different films.
Lacock was first Godric's Hollow, home to the Potter's house, as we've already explored. It then became Budleigh Babbitton in The Half-Blood Prince. This is the spot Harry and Dumbledore apparate to, then disapparate from, with the street the two wizards walk down seen behind. And
this historic house concealed Horace Slughorn from the Death Eaters in the form of a chair.
Merlin's beard!
Lacock is remarkably untouched by time, with buildings ranging from the 15th century to the 18th, an obvious location for filming, and has appeared on screen many times. Harry Potter returned here for The Half-Blood Prince, as part of a push from the director, David Yates, to film more on location. Lucky for us.
Our next wizarding residence is that of the Lovegoods, whose home was filmed up here in Grassington Moor, Yorkshire.
This incredibly windy area, now a Yorkshire Dales National Park, was once home to a lead mine, hence this large chimney that could be easily mistaken as the Lovegoods' home, at a distance. Appearing in the Deathly Hallows Part 1, when the trio went to visit Xenophilius Lovegood, the isolation of the moorland really added to the tension and unease of the scene. But for the abode of a wizarding family a class above the rest, a truly remarkable location is needed.
The impressive Hardwicke Hall became the menacing Malfoy Manor.
Not just any old building could be the ancestral home of the Malfoys. It had to be something grand, and Hardwicke Hall was just that. Used in aerial shots combined with CGI to make it even more imposing, and move the hedgerows to the front of the building for a more striking entrance. This country house can be seen in establishing shots of Malfoy Manor. Impressive in its own right, Hardwicke Hall was built between 1590 and 1597 for one Bess of Hardwicke, an incredibly interesting character from history, whose story is far too long for this video. The hall's interior is just as impressive, with colourful tapestries and ornately carved furniture, and though it doesn't feature in the films, it's not hard to imagine the Malfoys owning such furnishings. Our last location in this section is one rather special to our returning guest.
This is the tree where I first met Lily Evans, before that Potter was ever involved. Oh, how I love him. Of course the Muggles don't know, and they call this the Elephant Tree, and it stands in Hatfield Park. Not far from Spinner's End, and of course, the Evans residence. This was a spot I frequented to be alone, and after meeting Lily spent much time with her. Though the Muggles who run this place have let nature take hold of my tree, Hatfield House is still an interesting visit with remarkable gardens.
Now it's time to explore the locations of the darker times, the Second Wizarding War.
Was held in chains, but now I'm free. I'm hanging in there, don't you see? And there's process of the little vibration. Well, the train that goes to the kingdom. I'm having more, I'm having fun. The train ain't even leaving.
starting with the attack on London in the Half-Blood Prince.
The Death Eaters came flying down this narrow passageway to get to Diagon Alley and steal poor Ollivander, though it looks like the way is blocked today.
During their escape from the scene, they destroyed the Millennium Bridge.
Which may have been a little too close to home, as when it first opened, it used to sway up to 2 meters before being fixed.
Interestingly, the London Millennium Footbridge gets its name from the year it was completed, the turn of the millennium, the year 2000, meaning it won't be built for another 4 years by the time of the Half-Blood Prince, in the book at least. The film dates this disaster as the 5th of July 2007, proving the films are set 11 years after the books.
This is the spot the trio apparated to when the ministry was taken over. It's like Piccadilly Circus out here.
After spending some time in a cafe, they made their way down this walkway before eventually heading to Grimmauld Place, but were soon forced to camp in the wilderness.
And after a long, long walk, I finally made it to Swinley Forest.
This is where most of the scenes of the trio camping in the woods were filmed, standing in for the Forest of Dean. They returned here multiple times, and it is where they were chased by the Snatchers. Interestingly, via the use of a green screen, the background of this shot, filmed here, is somewhere else entirely. But we'll get to that.
We next see the trio crossing under the Prince of Wales Bridge, which connects England to Wales.
Though I doubt it was our stars in that shot.
It's very, very muddy under here.
They're not so stupid. The Prince of Wales Bridge, formerly the second Severn crossing, was opened in 1996 to help out the Severn Bridge that opened in 1966. Prior to that, a ferry was used to cross the estuary that had been running there since the medieval times.
They next camped at Malham Power Station,
on the bank of the River Trent in Nottinghamshire, where I'm currently standing, which has some very impressive wild flowers. Though the plant was decommissioned in 2003, the cooling towers stuck around for filming, before being demolished in 2012, though their bases can still be seen from above.
Here we are at Harry and Hermione's first campsite without Ron, Malham Cove.
Back home in Yorkshire, Malham Cove is this huge rock formation, well known for its limestone pavement at the top, where Harry and Hermione make their camp. It's alright for them, they can apparate, but we had to climb all these steps, and get past security. At 80 metres high, or 260 feet, the cove is a popular spot for climbers and tourists here to see the beautiful Yorkshire countryside. This remote yet remarkable place was perfect for portraying another isolated hiding spot. Now on to our last and saddest location in this section.
This is Freshwater West in Pembrokeshire, Wales, and it's the real-life home to Shell Cottage, and of course, the final resting place of Dobby the house elf.
This stunningly beautiful beach became home to the set for Shell Cottage, seen at the end of the Deathly Hallows Part 1 and the beginning of Part 2. The beach is still often visited by Potter fans, paying their respect to Dobby. A large number of piles of pebbles can be seen on the beach, including this massive pile of rocks, all painted or with messages written onto them, and of course, the occasional sock. But now it's time to let Dobby rest, as we turn the page on our next chapter. I took some friends along this time to share in the adventure, as we head off on an epic trip north, and to maybe catch a glimpse of the Hogwarts Express.
This is Rannoch Moor in Scotland. Scenes of the Hogwarts Express were filmed here on a remote railway deep into the moorland.
Difficult to reach without a helicopter or a train. The stretch of single track between Rannoch and Carraw became the perfect, eerie and isolated spot for the Death Eaters to search the train.
Another of the trio's campsites in the Deathly Hallows, Loch Etive in Scotland.
This stunning loch was used for establishing shots of our hero's tent, pitched on the bank, providing a remarkable backdrop. It is also the other half of the scene mentioned earlier, added to the background via the use of a green screen. Probably because, as I have learned the hard way, it can be very difficult filming in Scotland. Loch Etive is a beautiful spot, if not a little windy, but that makes sense considering its name is believed to mean Little Fierce One. And look, people still camp here today.
This is Loch Arkaig. It was used by the trio in their escape from Gringotts when they jumped off the dragon.
The following scene was filmed on the Western Bank, a remote spot only accessible by the windiest, hilliest single-track road I've ever driven on, and the weather certainly wasn't on our side. But we did get this footage of the bank where the scene was filmed, before I nearly lost my drone.
This is Loch Ilt, used for fabulous shots of the Hogwarts Express on its way to the castle, and of course, Dumbledore's grave.
In fact, Loch Eald and Dumbledore's Island appear multiple times throughout the series. Lochside shots of the Hogwarts Express are used in the Chamber of Secrets, The Prisoner of Azkaban, and for this lovely sequence in the Goblet of Fire, which I tried to create my own version of with the drone. We timed our visit just right to capture our own footage of a steam train passing the loch, which was a remarkable moment. But we'll get to the Jacobite soon. Both the island and loch appear in scenes from The Prisoner of Azkaban, in this scene featuring Harry and Lupin, and here where a mixture of shots from Loch Eald and Virginia Water Lake near London are combined, featuring Robbie Coltrane's double, Robbie Cold Calves. And of course, finally, the island we've seen featured so many times throughout the films becomes Dumbledore's resting place. A very apt choice, though this time, the loch around it has been extended.
The substantial Loch Morar was used when depicting the Black Lake's immense size.
Loch Morar is the 5th largest loch in Scotland and the deepest freshwater body in Britain. It can be seen in shots of Buckbeak's flight in The Prisoner of Azkaban, and was an amazing tranquil spot for us all to relax.
Speenbridge Station, up here in Scotland, was the 3rd location to become Hogsmeade Station, albeit very, very briefly in The Half-Blood Prince.
Though it appears this shot is mostly computer-generated, maybe using assets from previous films, and I haven't been able to confirm if any of it was actually filmed here, other than through rumours, I do know that Orton Hall, the real-life Hogwarts Express engine, did use this line for filming in Rannoch Moor, and picked up student extras from this very station for The Half-Blood Prince. Returning once more, for this next location, our special guest.
This is the site of Hagrid's despicable hut. I always said they should have torn it down. It really spoils the view. Definitely an upgrade from its previous location. This spot was used for Hagrid's hut and some of the surrounding grounds in the Prisoner of Azkaban. We often see students walking the slope to Hagrid's hut, and even see Potter and Granger hiding in this forest. Even the bridge to nowhere was built, in part, right here. Though filming returned to this location for the subsequent installments, the sets did not. Here it is. My goodness. I should have never installed this ramp. And were added in post. It also inspired the background to scenes in The Half-Blood Prince, such as Aragog's burial, filmed on set in the studio, and, of course, my iconic moment.
You dare use my own spells against me, Potter?
Yes. I'm the Half-Blood Prince. Good one, Bella. Now we can enjoy the view.
This is Torren Lochen, the small loch that can be seen in the background behind Hagrid's hut.
This may be the most beautiful spot I've ever been to, with the colourful flowers and the pristinely clear reflection of the mountains in the water, though it was a bit buggy. Some filming for Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban took place here, and though I didn't see any trees this large, it may have inspired the spot where Harry conjures his first corporeal Patronus. In fact, when we were there, a deer walked right by us. It must be a sign.
This is the picturesque Loch Shiel, the original and most iconic Black Lake, and of course home to Hogwarts, on these very mountains behind me.
Appearing in almost every film, starting with the Chamber of Secrets, and used for most every lakeside shot of the castle, this is the home of Hogwarts. This beautiful loch is the fourth longest in Scotland. So long its nature drastically changes from one side to the other. It is guarded by the Glenfinnan Monument, dedicated to the Scottish Highlanders who fought in the Jacobite Rising of 1745.
I cannot get over how remarkable it is being up in the Highlands. Honestly, the films don't really do it justice. It's outstanding. It's like nowhere I've ever been before. The mountains are so magnificent and the views are amazing wherever you are, and sometimes you just need to stop for a moment and just take it all in.
Loch Shiel often appears together with our next and last location in the entire video, and maybe the most famous Harry Potter filming location of all.
This is the Glenfinnan Viaduct, an iconic bit of track, most known for many shots of the Hogwarts Express passing over.
Just moments away from Loch Shiel, the Glenfinnan Viaduct became the Hogwarts Viaduct in multiple Harry Potter films, starting with its most famous appearance in the Chamber of Secrets for the Ford Anglia's altercation with the Hogwarts Express. It also was the spot the train stops in The Prisoner of Azkaban, and gave us this stunning shot from the Goblet of Fire shown earlier. The Glenfinnan Viaduct was built between 1897 and 1901 out of mass concrete. It has a single track running across its 21 arches that still operates as part of the West Highland Line, connecting Fort William to Malig today. But that isn't why we're here. We're here to see steam, but that was going to be much more difficult than we expected. The Jacobite is a steam train reminiscent of the Hogwarts Express, operating on this line twice a day during summer. We were lucky enough to see it at Loch Eald, but we wanted to see it cross the viaduct, recreating those fantastic shots. Our first attempt was thwarted by the Glenfinnan Games, so we tried the next day, but this time someone stole our parking space, so we missed out. Though my sister did capture this distant shot of it. Then we made sure to get there early for the next one, only for it to be a diesel pulling the Jacobite. Moods were low at this point. We had one more chance to see it on the day we were leaving. We got there early and waited with the crowds, holding our breath. Then we heard it. The crowds cheered and the whistle blew. We watched the magnificent moment the Jacobite crossed the viaduct. Our last location and our journey complete. The crowds cheered once more and we didn't even notice the rain pouring down on us from above. We were thrilled.
Third attempt lucky.
What a moment. Thank you for joining me on this remarkable journey across the wizarding world. Our travels have taken us from the westerly tip of Wales to the south coast of England, back home to Yorkshire, and all the way up to the Scottish Highlands. A year in the making, many miles on the clock, and the usual smorgasbord of weather conditions that you find in Britain. But some of those locations will stick with me forever. Why not share which was your favourite in the comments? And stick around to see what we get up to next. Mischief managed.